The knock and the cold the wind screamed outside like a living thing. The night sky was a deep, endless black, and the snow fell in thick, heavy sheets. Inside his small metal cabin, Daniel sat by the heater, holding a cup of steaming water. The alien winter was cruel, and the settlement was far away. He liked it that way. He had been on this planet for 2 years. He worked in the mines during the day and kept to himself at night. People, human or alien, didn't knock on his door. Not out here, which was why the sound hit him like a shock. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was heavy, urgent. Not the kind of knock you give when you're visiting. It was the kind of knock you give when you're running from something. Daniel set down his cup. His hand reached for the small metal bar he kept by the door. He moved slowly, his boots thudding on the metal floor. Another knock, louder this time. He opened the door. Cold air rushed in, biting his skin. Standing there in the snow was a tall alien woman. Her skin was pale silver, and her dark hair clung to her face, wet from the storm. Her glowing yellow eyes locked on his dot behind her, 2 small shapes huddled close, children. Their faces were half hidden by thick cloaks, but Daniel could see they were shivering. The woman's voice was soft but shaking. "I will warm your bed, human," she said, her words strange, as if they carried more than one meaning. "My children need a father." Daniel stared at her. "You're lost." "No," she whispered, looking over her shoulder into the dark woods. "I was followed." A strange sound carried in the wind like metal scraping stone, far away. Daniel's eyes narrowed. The children clung to their mother's legs, their eyes wide. "Please," she said, stepping forward. "If you do not let us in, they will find us." Daniel hesitated. He didn't trust strangers, but the fear in her voice was real. "Get inside," he said at last. She rushed in, pulling the children with her. Daniel slammed the door shut and locked it. The wind howled outside, but there was something else now, a slow, crunching sound. Like footsteps in the snow. The woman pressed her back against the wall. Still looking at the door, Daniel noticed her clothes, torn and dirty, marked with strange black stains. Her hands trembled as she pulled the children close. "Who's out there?" Daniel asked. She shook her head. "Not people you want to meet. You'll have to give me more than that." Her eyes flicked to the window. "Not yet. It is safer. If you do not know," Daniel frowned. He didn't like secrets. But he also didn't like the idea of whatever was outside still being out there. The heater hummed, filling the cabin with a faint warmth. The children didn't speak. They just sat on the floor, wrapped in their cloaks, staring at Daniel like they were studying him. "You live alone?" the woman asked suddenly. "Yes," Daniel said. "I like it that way." She nodded slowly, as if that answer told her something important. Then the sound came again. Closer this time. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Snow being crushed under something heavy. Daniel moved to the window and peered out. At first, he saw nothing but white snow and black trees. Then movement, a shadow between the trees. It was tall. Too tall to be human. The woman's voice was tense. "Close the curtain. Do not let them see you." Daniel didn't argue. He pulled the curtain shut and stepped back. "You're going to tell me what's going on," he said. The woman's eyes softened for a moment, then hardened again. "If I tell you, you may send us back into the snow." "I might," Daniel admitted. She leaned forward. "Then I will not tell you. Not tonight. Just let us stay until the morning." Daniel studied her. He could see strength in her posture, but also exhaustion. Whatever she'd been through, it had been going on for a long time. The heater hummed louder. The wind roared outside. Then 3 slow, deliberate knocks at the door. Knock. Knock, knock, dot. Daniel froze. The woman's eyes widened. The children buried their faces in her cloak. The knocks came again, harder this time. Open, a deep voice called from outside, not human. The word was stretched, guttural, filled with threat. We know she is inside. Daniel's grip tightened on the metal bar in his hand. His mind raced. He didn't know who these people were or what they wanted. But he knew one thing. He opened that door. The night would end in blood. The woman shook her head violently. Do not speak. Do not answer. The knocking stopped. The silence was worse. Daniel stepped closer to the door, listening. The footsteps faded, slow and deliberate, into the storm. But in the back of his mind, he knew whoever they were, they'd be back, and next time, they wouldn't knock. The widow's secret, the storm, had swallowed the night. Outside, the wind howled like it wanted to tear the cabin apart. Inside, the air was thick, not just with heat from the heater, but with something heavier. Silence. Daniel sat at the table, his eyes on the alien woman. She sat close to her children, one arm wrapped around them. The firelight caught the edges of her pale silver skin. She was still wearing her torn cloak, but now Daniel noticed the faint marks beneath it, dark lines burned into her flesh, curling like strange letters. The children didn't speak. They didn't even fidget. Their eyes bright. Bright kept watching him like they were listening to his thoughts. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. They knew your name. The woman didn't look up. They always know my name. That voice outside, what did it mean? Who are they? Her eyes flicked to the door. Hunters. Daniel leaned forward. Hunters of what? She hesitated, then whispered, hunters of me. Her words hung in the air. Daniel tried to make sense of it. You're saying they're after you personally? Not your kind, not anyone else. They want my children, she said softly, pulling them closer. They will kill me to get them. Daniel's jaw tightened. Why? The woman finally looked at him, and her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Because they are not like the others. Daniel didn't understand, but he didn't press yet. The fear in her voice wasn't the kind you could fake. You still haven't told me your name, he said. She hesitated again. Sira. Daniel repeated it slowly. Sira, and your children. The smallest one spoke for the first time. Lyran. His voice was clear and steady, like he wasn't a child at all. The older one followed. Mira. Her eyes didn't blink. Their voices made Daniel's skin prickle. There was something strange in the way they spoke, each word perfectly shaped. Like they had been taught to speak only when it mattered. He set down his cup. You said they're hunters. What kind of hunters walk around in the middle of a storm? The kind who will not stop, Sira said. Not for cold, not for distance, not for blood. Daniel waited, but she didn't explain further. The heater clicked, and the storm roared outside. For a moment, it felt like the cabin was the only warm place left in the world. Daniel finally asked the question that had been pressing on him since she arrived. Back at the door, you said, I will warm your bed, human. What did you mean by that? Sira didn't look away. I meant exactly what I said. A home is not just walls. It is a place where someone is not alone. You are alone. I am alone. Our needs fit together. Daniel opened his mouth to reply, but before he could, a noise broke the moment, soft, slow scraping against the wall outside. He stood quickly, moving to the window. He lifted the curtain just enough to look. For an instant, he saw a tall shadow sliding between the trees, moving like smoke. No face, just darkness and height. They're still out there, Daniel said. Sira's voice dropped to a whisper. They will watch all night. Waiting. They want to see if you are weak. And if I am? Daniel asked. Then they will. Take me and the children before the sun rises. Daniel didn't like being tested. He had faced worse than shadows in the past. But there was something different about this, like the danger wasn't just outside, but also sitting at his table. "You said your husband is dead?" he said, watching her face. Her jaw tightened. "Us? How? Us?" She looked at the floor for a long moment before answering. "He tried to protect us. He failed." The words were sharp, cold, like a blade sliding under the skin. Daniel leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. "And now you expect me to succeed where he didn't." Syrah's gaze locked on his. "I expect you to try," the way she said. It wasn't a request, it was a challenge. The children shifted slightly. Myra spoke again, her voice low. "They're closer now." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "How do you know that?" Myra tilted her head. "We can hear them thinking." A chill ran down Daniel's spine. He looked at Sarah. She didn't deny it. "That's why they want them," she said. "Because my children can hear what others plan before they act." In war, that power changes everything. My husband's clan wanted to give them to the fighters. I ran. Daniel felt the weight of her words. It wasn't just about protecting a widow and her children. This was bigger. Outside. The scraping stopped. The night fell silent again. Daniel moved to the door and placed his hand against it. The wood felt colder than it should. "They're not gone," he muttered. "No," Syrah said. "They are patient. They are waiting for you to make a mistake." Daniel turned back to her. "Then we won't give them one." "Us," Thorm roared. The shadows outside moved again just far enough to keep from being seen, and Daniel knew the truth now. Whatever Syrah's secret was, it had already made him a part of it. Hunters in the dark, the storm had not stopped, but the night had changed. It was no longer the sound of wind. Daniel heard was the sound of something else. Heavy, slow, purposeful. A thud came from the snow outside, followed by another. Footsteps. Big ones. Daniel put down the small lantern he was holding. "They're here," he said quietly. Syrah didn't ask how he knew. She was already pulling her children closer. Myra and Lyron sat against the wall, their bright eyes fixed on the door, unblinking. The footsteps stopped. Silence wrapped around the cabin, then 3 sharp knocks. Not the frantic pounding from earlier. This was different. Calm, confident. Daniel's grip tightened on the metal bar in his hand. A voice came, deep and rough, shaped by a mouth not built for human words. "Open, now." Daniel didn't move. "You have something that belongs to us." The voice continued. "The widow, the spawn. Give them, and you live." Daniel could feel Syrah's stare on him, but he didn't look back. He spoke toward the door. "Not happening." There was a pause. Then a laugh, a sound like stone grinding against stone. "Human, you think you can stop us? We have killed your kind before. We will kill you slow." Daniel stepped closer to the door, his voice flat. "Try it." The laughter stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than the storm. Outside, then without warning, something slammed into the door so hard that the metal hinges screamed. The children flinched, but Syrah didn't move. "Daniel," she said, her tone low. "If they breach the door, you will not survive. Not alone." "I'm not alone," he said, eyes on the shaking door. The voice outside called again, this time colder. "Last chance, human. We take them, or we take everything." Daniel didn't answer. The shadow under the door shifted. Syrah's eyes narrowed. "There are 3 of them. How do you know?" Daniel asked. "My children can feel their thoughts," she said. "One is impatient, one is cruel. One is their leader." Daniel thought fast. Which one is talking? Now, Syrah's gaze didn't waver. The leader. "He wants to test you." Daniel gave a dry laugh. Then let's make sure he fails the test. Another slam shook the door. The wood cracked at the edges. Snow blew in through a small split. Daniel turned to Sira. If they get in, take the kids through the back hatch. Run to the ravine. Don't stop, and you, she asked. I'll slow them down. For a second, she looked like she might argue, but then her expression changed. She gave him one sharp nod. Do not die, human. Daniel positioned himself in front of the door, his weapon raised. The next blow would break it, and then it came, wood splintering, metal bending, cold air flooding in. The first hunter stepped through the gap. Daniel's breath caught not from fear, but from the sight. The creature was huge, easily 8 feet tall, with armor made from black chitin that glistened with frost. Its head was narrow, with eyes like molten silver. It carried a long, curved blade in one hand. Behind it, 2 more shadows moved. The second was leaner, faster looking. The third was the largest TIT's armor, decorated with strange bone markings. The leader, he stepped forward. Ignoring the cold, his gaze fixed on Sarah. Wife of Kharros, he said, his deep voice filling the small space. You will come. Sarah's voice was sharp. I am not your clan's property. The leader tilted his head. Everything you are, and everything you birthed, belongs to us. His silver eyes slid to Daniel. And you, human. You are nothing. Daniel smiled without humor. Funny, I was just thinking the same about you. The leader's expression darkened. Kill him. The lean hunter moved first, rushing through the broken doorway. But Daniel was faster than they expected, swinging the metal bar hard into the side of its helmet. The creature staggered, hissing, before regaining balance. The children's eyes glowed faintly now. Mira spoke in a voice that didn't sound like a child's at all. He will strike low, next. Daniel listened, stepping back, just as the hunter's blade swept where his legs had been a moment before. He countered with a hard blow to the creature's arm, knocking the weapon away. The leader didn't move yet. He was watching, measuring. The third hunter, the impatient one, snarled and charged in. Daniel barely had time to dodge before the creature smashed into the table, splintering it into pieces. Sira stood now, her hand gripping a short blade that seemed to appear from nowhere. She moved with frightening speed, slicing a deep cut across the impatient hunter's side. The cabin was chaos now, blowing in through the broken door. Weapons clashing, the air filled with growls and heavy breathing. Finally, the leader raised his hand. The other 2 froze instantly. He looked at Daniel again. You fight well, human. Better than most. But you will not win. Daniel's voice was calm, even in the freezing air. Then why are you still talking? The leader's eyes narrowed. Because now, I know you are worth killing myself. With that, he stepped forward. His massive blade gleaming in the FIRELIGHT, and Daniel knew the real fight was only beginning. The truth about her children, the leader's blade stopped a breath away from Daniel's neck. It wasn't Daniel who stopped it, it was Mira. The little girl stood in the middle of the cabin, her small hand raised. She didn't touch the blade, she didn't need to. The metal trembled in the leader's grip, as if it was being held by invisible chains. Let go, she said softly. The leader's silver eyes widened. His arm shook, and the blade fell to the floor with a heavy thud. The sound was too loud. For such a small act, Daniel stared. He had seen strange things on this planet, but never a child freezing a weapon in midair without moving an inch. The leader took a step back. His deep voice low with something Daniel had not heard in him before: fear. She is stronger than her father was at this age. Sira moved in front of her daughter, blade in hand. and she will never be yours." The leader's gaze hardened, but he didn't attack again. Instead, he gave a slow, mocking bow. "This is not over, widow. Human. Enjoy your borrowed time." Then he signaled the other hunters, and they retreated into the storm. Their shapes melted into the snow until the night swallowed them whole. Silence fell. Only the wind remained. Daniel closed the broken door as best he could, pushing a heavy cabinet in front of it. His mind was still caught on what he had just seen. He turned to Sira. What was that? Sira didn't answer immediately. She was checking her children, touching their faces, whispering something in a language Daniel didn't understand. Daniel stepped closer. "You told me they could hear thoughts. You didn't tell me they could do that." Sira finally looked up. Her eyes were sharp, defensive. "I told you what was safe to tell." "Safe for who?" Daniel asked. "Because it feels like I've been walking in the dark since you arrived." Her jaw tightened. "Then I will give you light." She motioned for him to sit. The children sat across from him, still watching him with their two bright eyes. "My children," Sarah began slowly, "are not like others of my kind. Their minds can touch the thoughts of those around them. But they can also move things." Daniel's brow furrowed, "without touching them." "Yes, the gift is old. My husband's clan. It is rare enough that whole wars have been fought for a child like Mira or Liren. My husband carried the gift weakly. The children do not." Daniel looked at Myra. She stared back without blinking. He had the strange feeling that she was reading not just his thoughts, but the weight behind them. Sira's voice softened. "This is why they want them. Imagine an army that can hear your plans before you speak them, and strike with weapons they never touch. It is power beyond weapons. Beyond fear." Daniel rubbed his jaw. "And you ran because you didn't want your kids to be weapons." "Yes," she said simply. "I would rather they live in hiding than die as tools." Liren spoke for the first time since the hunters left. "They will come again. Soon." Daniel turned to him. "How do you know?" Liren's voice was steady. "They're still thinking about us. They are deciding how to kill you first." Daniel gave a grim smile. "That's comforting." Sira reached for her cloak, pulling it tighter. "We cannot stay here. The cabin is broken, and the cold will kill us before they do." Daniel shook his head. "Leaving in the middle of the night. In this storm. That's suicide." "Staying is worse," Sira said. "You don't understand. They will not stop. They will watch until you sleep. They will wait until your guard is down, and then—" She didn't finish the sentence. Daniel looked at the two children. They didn't look scared. They looked ready, like they had been living in this danger their whole lives. "All right," Daniel said finally. "But if we're going, we do it smart. We take the back ravine. They won't expect it." Sira nodded once. "The ravine leads to the ice caves. We can hide there for a while." As Daniel started gathering supplies, he felt a small tug on his sleeve. He looked down. Mira was standing there. "You don't believe you can win," she said quietly. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What makes you think that?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, he felt a faint pressure in his mind, like a voice whispering without sound. "You've lost before. You don't want to lose again." He froze. "Stay." Out of my head, Myra's expression didn't change. "I can't. Not if you're thinking about us." Daniel turned away, shoving gear into a pack. This was going to be harder than he thought. Protecting them wasn't just about fighting off hunters. It was about staying one step ahead of something that could read his every move. Sarah stepped beside him. "You still have a choice, human. We can leave you here. If we go alone, they will not waste time killing you." Daniel zipped the pack shut. too late for that. They've already decided I'm worth killing. Sira studied him for a moment, then gave a small, almost sad smile. Then you are one of us now. Outside, the wind roared through the broken doorframe. Somewhere beyond the storm, Daniel knew the hunters were waiting, thinking, planning, and in the shadows of the cabin, 2 alien children sat silently, listening. Siege of the cabin, the first sound was not a knock. It was the crunch of snow under many feet. Daniel froze mid-step, the pack half-sipped in his hands. The wind outside still howled, but underneath it, he could hear the rhythm soft, steady, and wrong. Too many feet moving in one direction. Sira heard it too. Her head snapped toward the broken door. They are here. Mira and Lyran didn't look surprised. They only moved closer together, their bright eyes fixed on the door. Daniel dropped the pack and reached for his metal bar. They're not giving us until morning, are they? No, Sira said, voice low. They know we plan to leave. They want us dead before we can vanish. Then the second sound came, a low, rolling growl from outside. Deep enough to make the floorboards tremble. Daniel glanced at Sira. Please tell me that's not one of them. It's not, she said grimly. It's worse. They've brought their beasts. The growl was followed by a scraping noise along the wall, claws on metal. Then another growl answered from the opposite side. Daniel's mind raced. How many? 2 beasts, Sira said. 3 hunters. 5 against 4, Daniel muttered. Great odds. The first impact came without warning. Something slammed into the wall so hard the lantern shook, almost falling over. The second beast hit the other side, making the entire cabin shudder. There. Testing the walls, Sira said. They'll break through, Daniel replied, already moving. We need to hold them at the door. The plan didn't last long. A shadow swept across the window, and before Daniel could shout, a huge claw punched through the glass, scattering shards across the floor. The beast's snout followed black, wet and lined with teeth as long as Daniel's fingers. Mira's voice cut through the chaos. It's thinking about biting your arm. Daniel didn't ask how she knew. He ducked just as the beast lunged, its jaws snapping shut where his head had been. He swung the metal bar into its snout. The beast roared and pulled back, but it was far from gone. The door rattled violently. The hunters were there now, slamming against it, each hit bending the frame a little more. Daniel. Sira's voice came sharp from the other side of the didas. Kavin. She had her blade drawn, keeping the second beast from climbing through a hole in the wall. Lyran stood behind her, eyes glowing faintly. The boy's voice was steady. I can make it fall. Sira hesitated only a second. Do it, Rinse. Small hands clench, and the beast suddenly jerked backward as if yanked by invisible chains. It crashed into the snow outside with a high, pained cry. Daniel blocked another swipe from the first beast's claw, his arms aching from the impact. The door gave another groan. It wouldn't last. Back to the hearth, he shouted. They fell. Back toward the center of the cabin, forming a loose circle, Daniel with his metal bar. Sira with her blade, and the children crouched between them. The door burst open. The leader stepped through first, silver eyes burning in the dim light. The other 2 hunters flanked him, weapons ready. The beasts circled outside, growling, waiting for an opening. You should have given them to us, the leader said, his voice cold. Daniel smirked, despite the tension. You should have stayed home. The leader moved first, a blur of black armor. Daniel barely blocked the downward strike of his blade, the impact rattling his bones. The second hunter darted to the side, aiming for Sari, but she spun and slashed. Steel meeting steel in a flash of sparks. The third hunter reached for Lyran, but the boy's eyes glowed brighter, and the hunter's weapon flew from his hands, clattering across the floor. The leader's attacks were relentless. Daniel fought to keep up, each strike heavier than the last. His boots slid on the wooden floor as he blocked and countered. Daniel Myra's voice rang out. "Duck now." He dropped instantly, and the leader's blade whistled over his head, smashing into the wall. Daniel swung low, his metal bar slamming into the leader's knee. The alien grunted in pain. Staggering back, Sira used the moment to shove her opponent into the path of one of the beasts lunging through the window. The beast's jaws closed around the hunter's arm, dragging him halfway outside. The hunter screamed, thrashing. The leader roared in rage, stepping forward again. This time, Daniel was ready. He slammed the metal bar into the side of the leader's helmet, the blow ringing like a bell. The leader stumbled, but his eyes stayed locked on Sarah. "This ends now." Mira's voice was urgent. "He's going to," before she could finish. The leader raised his hand, and something unseen slammed into Daniel, throwing him across the room. His back hit the wall hard, knocking the air from his lungs. Through the haze, Daniel saw the leader's blade pressed against Sira's throat. The cabin was Chaos One beast, dragging a hunter outside, another clawing at the window. Sira, frozen, with steel at her neck, the children's eyes glowing like small suns. Daniel forced air back into his chest. He gripped his weapon and stood, his vision narrowing to one target: the leader. Because no matter how bad it got, he wasn't letting them take her. The last stand, the cold steel was pressed against Sira's throat. The leader's silver eyes glowed with triumph, and Daniel was already moving. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He just ran. The leader saw him coming, but Daniel didn't slow down. He swung his metal bar with all his strength. The blow smashed into the side of the leader's helmet. The sound sharp and ugly. The alien staggered back a step, the blade slipping from Sira's neck. She didn't waste the moment. She twisted away and slashed at him, her blade cutting deep into the leader's side. The roar that followed was not human. It was deep, shaking the cabin walls, making the beasts outside snarl in answer. The leader dropped low and swept his leg, knocking Daniel to the floor. Daniel rolled just as the massive blade came down where his head had been. Splinters flew, the floor groaning under the force. Sira stepped in, striking fast, her blade flashing again and again. But the leader was fast too, blocking, twisting, forcing her back. Each hit felt like it carried the weight of stone. Daniel scrambled to his feet, grabbing his weapon again. "Together?" he shouted. Sira gave a quick nod, and they moved as one, Daniel swinging high, Sira striking low. The leader blocked Daniel's strike, but couldn't stop Sira's. Her blade slid under his armor, drawing black, smoking blood. The leader roared again, and this time, the beasts outside responded. One crashed fully through the broken wall, snow and wood exploding into the room. Its jaws snapped at Daniel, but he shoved the metal bar into its mouth, holding it back with every muscle screaming in protest. "Myra?" Sira's voice was sharp. The little girl's eyes blazed like molten gold. She raised her hand, and the beast froze mid-lunge, its muscles trembling. Liren stepped forward beside her, his hands clenched. And the beast began to slide backward, Tid's claws leaving deep grooves in the floor, till it was yanked out of the cabin entirely. The leader's voice cut through the chaos. "You think? You can protect them forever, human? They will be mine." Daniel's voice was low. "Not while I'm breathing." The leader lunged. Daniel met him head-on, their weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. Each strike rattled his bones, but Daniel didn't back down. Sira joined the fight again, moving like liquid steel, her strikes precise and deadly. She ducked under the leader's blade, slashing deep into his arm. The alien hissed, his movements slowing, but then the second hunter, bloodied from the beast, stumbled back inside. He saw the children and charged, Daniel turned instinctively, ready to stop him, but the leader used the moment to slam his shoulder into Daniel, knocking him flat. The air rushed from his lungs, pain flaring across his ribs. The second hunter reached for Lyran, his claws outstretched. No. Myra's voice was sharp, but this time it wasn't just sound, it was power. The air in the cabin seemed to pulse. The hunter stopped mid-stride, frozen, his body trembling violently. Lyran's voice followed, calm but fierce. Fall. The hunter dropped to his knees, then collapsed face first into the snow, spilling across the floor. Daniel pushed himself up, gasping for breath. Sira was still holding off the leader, but she was tiring, her breath sharp, her blade slower. Daniel grabbed his weapon and charged again. He swung low at the leader's legs, forcing him to stumble, then came up fast with a hard strike to the jaw. The leader staggered back, his silver eyes blazing. Enough, he bellowed. The room seemed to shake. For a second, Daniel thought. The sound was just the leader's rage until he realized. It wasn't. The second beast had forced its way inside. It leaped over the fallen hunter, landing between Daniel and the leader, its fangs dripping, its breath hot in the freezing air. The leader smiled. Kill him. The beast lunged, but Sarah was faster. She shoved Daniel aside and drove her blade deep into the beast's neck. Black blood sprayed across the floor, steaming where it hit the cold wood. The beast collapsed in a twitching heap. The leader's smile was gone now. His breathing was heavier, his stance less certain. Daniel stepped forward, every muscle aching, but every step steady. It's over. The leader raised his blade anyway. Not until one of us is dead. Then, let's finish it, Daniel said. The final clash was brutal steel against steel, each hit echoing like a drumbeat. Daniel blocked, struck, and blocked again. Sira joined from the side, her strike slicing through the leader's weakened defenses. Then Daniel saw the opening, just for a heartbeat. He stepped in and swung with everything he had left. The metal bar smashed into the side of the leader's head, shattering the helmet and sending him crashing to the floor. The leader lay still, his silver eyes dimming. The cabin fell silent except for the sound of their heavy breathing. Daniel lowered his weapon slowly. Sira stood beside him, her chest rising and falling, her blade dripping black blood. Myra and Lyran moved closer, their eyes still glowing faintly. It's done, Lyran said softly. Daniel looked at the body of the leader, then at the broken door, the snow blowing in, and the endless dark beyond it. No, Daniel said. It's just beginning. A new beginning. The snow had stopped falling. Morning light crept across the frozen trees, turning the ice on the branches into glittering silver. The storm was gone, but the cabin looked like it had been through a war-broken walls. Shattered glass, blood both black and red staining the floor. Daniel stood at the doorway, his weapon resting against the frame. He watched the horizon. Nothing moved except the wind brushing snow across the ground. Sira came to stand beside him. She was wrapped in a thick cloak now, her silver skin faintly glowing in the daylight. They won't come today, she said quietly. Daniel didn't look at her. You sure? Her eyes stayed on the horizon. No. Behind them, Myra and Lyran were cleaning up the mess without being asked. They moved in silence, working together in a way that didn't seem natural for children, but nothing about them had been natural from the start. Daniel turned back into the cabin. We can't stay here, not with the walls like this. We need somewhere defensible. Sira nodded. There are caves in the ridge to the north. My people used them before the clan took them. Empty now. Maybe. Daniel frowned. Not good enough. Sira gave a small smile. You sound like someone who plans to protect us." Daniel didn't answer, but his eyes met hers. That was enough. They spent the rest of the morning gathering supplies, food, blankets, what little ammunition Daniel had left. Sira moved like someone used to survival, quick and efficient. The children carried more than he expected for their size, their steps never faltering. When they stepped outside, the cold hit like a wall. But it was a calmer cold now, no screaming wind, no blinding snow. The forest stretched out in every direction, silent except for the crunch of their boots. They walked in a tight formation, Daniel in front, Sira in the middle with the children, always glancing behind them. Hours passed. Sun was low when they reached the ridge. The caves were there, dark mouths in the ice. Daniel checked the first one, moving slow. Weapon ready, empty. For now, they set a small fire in the back, the flicker of orange light dancing across the ice walls. It was warmer here, the wind barely reaching inside. The children huddled close to the flames. Lyran finally spoke. "You're staying with us now, aren't you?" Daniel looked at him. "I haven't decided." Mira tilted her head, that strange look in her eyes again. "You already did." In your mind, Daniel gave a dry smile. "Stay out of my head." She smiled back just a little. Sira sat across from him, her cloak pulled tight. "When I first came to your door, I thought you would send us away. I thought you would see only trouble." Daniel shrugged. "I did. I just didn't care." Her gaze softened. "Then let me say this: if you let me, I will stay. I will warm your bed, human. My children, they need a father." The words hung in the cave, warm against the cold air. Daniel didn't answer right away. He watched the flames dance in the ice, thinking about the hunters, the beasts, the fight that nearly killed them all. Finally, he said, "If I stay, I don't leave halfway. That's not who I am." Sira's expression didn't change, but something in her shoulders eased. "Then you are one of us now." The fire crackled softly. For the first time in days, Daniel felt his body relax. He let his eyes close for a moment, just to rest. That was when Myra spoke again, quiet, but sharp enough to cut through the moment. "They're still out there," she said. Daniel's eyes opened instantly. "The hunters?" She shook her head. "Not them. Someone else, watching." Sira's hand went to her blade. "Where?" Myra pointed toward the mouth of the cave. "Far, in the trees." "He's thinking about whether to come closer." Daniel stood slowly, gripping his weapon. "You can hear him now." "Yes," Mira said. "But I can't tell if he's alone." Daniel moved to the edge of the cave, peering into the fading light. The forest was still. No movement, no sound. But the hair on the back of his neck stood up. Sira joined him, her voice low. "If they found us already, we may never stop running." Daniel's grip tightened on his weapon. "Then we make them stop." The forest stayed quiet, but Daniel knew what the silence meant. It didn't mean safety. It meant patience. Somewhere out there, in the dark between the trees, eyes were watching and waiting. He turned back to the fire, his jaw set. "Rest while you can," he told them. "Tomorrow, we start making this place ours." Because whatever was coming, this time, they'd be ready.